Good afternoon and welcome to the 2014 Technical Exchange done in collaboration with our partners ESNet and with our local host Indiana University. This is a new event for us, a new event format for bringing together the Internet 2 and ESNet technology communities in a little broader sort of format. The team I know at Internet 2, at ESNet, and from the community has worked really hard over the last several months to pull this together. So we would really looking forward to a great meeting, and I thank you all for coming. The latest number I hear for the number of registrants we have is 754. And so it's a great meeting, and you're going to get a great opportunity to work with your colleagues here. So first thing I'd like to do is to welcome, we always try to do this every time, to welcome the new members to the Internet 2 community since we had our last meeting. So since Global Summit in the spring of 2014, we've had 21 new members join Internet 2 who find value in the community. So those of you who are from our new members, can you stand up? And as a community, let's welcome them. I'd also like to take the opportunity to give a great big thanks to Indiana University, our local host. You know, they got the inaugural shot here at hosting what we think is going to be a great fall technical meeting. The university rolled up its shirt sleeves and really worked hard to make this happen. So I'd like to thank President McRobbie and Mrs. McRobbie, who also helped. Michael, as you know, is our board chair, and Brad Wheeler and his organization and his team at Indiana University for all of the enormous amount of effort that they put into this. So thank you very much, Indiana. Also like to thank the hosts. Our sponsors. We can't really do meetings like this without our community being involved and the sponsors coming here. Our platinum sponsor, Fortinet, who you're going to hear from in a minute. Our gold sponsor, Aspera, Juniper, Matrix Integration, and Oracle. Our silver sponsors, Brocade, Ciena, Cisco, and Symantec, a number of broad sponsors. So please go up to the sponsor areas and spend time with the sponsors. You've got to go up there to eat, so while you're doing that, please spend time with your sponsors. Over the next 3 days, you'll hear some exciting talks, collaborate in the tracks that we have, and enjoy further collaboration in our evening social activities. And we've got some neat things set up for you around our evening activities. So I encourage you to make the most of these next 3 days. Today's general session sponsor is our platinum sponsor, Fortinet. So I'd like to invite James Browson from Fortinet to the stage to say a few words. James.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to first thank everybody at Internet 2 and all the members for allowing us to participate in this event. We only have a couple minutes, and since one of my words is worth 1,000 slides, I thought we'd start out with a quick video.
Networking technologies. Every day, the Internet 2 network carries approximately 2 petabytes of research information.
The significance of 100 gig ports at USC is that it allows us to run applications over Internet 2 that would be not possible at slower speeds, even at 10 gigabit, because of the size of the data sets. If we're talking about data sets that are in the hundreds of terabytes, we can only transfer those over 100 gig. The importance of securing USC's Internet 2 infrastructure is to protect against loss or theft of irreplaceable research data, protected health information, protected personally identifiable information, and other valuable intellectual property.
In the past, firewalls have become a bottleneck of the network. However, today we're seeing projects like Internet 2 and 100 gig data centers. It's crucial that your firewall can pass at least 100 gigabits per second in both directions. It's extremely important that we're able to demonstrate in a real-world environment the throughput required for modern data centers.
In the demo for Internet 2, we were trying to demonstrate 2 things: performance, but also real-world conditions. Those real-world conditions are made up of both large volumes of scientific data, but also real-world campus traffic with a mix of applications. Stacy is announcing a new high-performance option for the Perfect Storm platform. Perfect Storm is a chassis that supports massive throughput for testing security and applications. So the new announcement is a new interface card for Perfect Storm that supports 100 gigabit Ethernet interfaces. With the new Perfect Storm blade, we can help our customers test for those high-performance environments where they're beginning to deploy 100 gigabit Ethernet.
Fortinet is announcing the FortiGate 3810D. This is the world's fastest network security appliance. It has throughput speeds of 300 gigabits per second and port connectivity of 100 gig. It's probably 10 times the speed of most of our competitors. What does 10x mean to you? If I could watch my favorite soccer team 10 times faster, I could watch the entire game in only 9 minutes.
To me, 10x means I could watch an entire season Breaking Bad and not trash my entire weekend.
To me, it means putting my kids to bed in 6 minutes instead of an hour.
I also wouldn't mind if my investments grew 10 times faster. That would help pay some of the bills.
So thanks again for having us. And some of our most critical learning comes with the question, or starts with a question. So what does 10x faster mean to the rest of us? Thanks. Please stop by and see us.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Shelton Wagner, Senior Vice President of Internet 2.
Very good afternoon to everybody. I love that thought, 10x. We have 10x or more the capacity of any one of our institutions here in the room. We really look forward to all of you collaborating together, 750 plus people joining together. We have over 270 academic members of Internet 2 now. Combine that with all of the labs, it's just a great opportunity. I'm really thrilled to be here today. And as Jim from Fortinet was saying to me before we started, he said, you know, this is a really fantastic event. There's all these technologists and no salespeople. What a great idea. So indeed, that's really what this is all about. Our goal for you and for this meeting is to make it your meeting, to make the sessions your sessions, to really have an opportunity to share, to collaborate, and engage on all the core technical issues that are so important to you. We couldn't do this without making sure that the labs and the campuses work seamlessly. We make sure that there's no barriers between us, and thanks to Greg Bell and his team at ESNet, we are able to do that. The ESNet staff and the Internet 2 staff have worked hard, not just on this event, but in supporting research everywhere it is. And it's just a great partnership. We've achieved a lot working together with the groups. Of course, an event like this doesn't happen without a lot of people working to make it happen, both at the campus level and across our organizations. If those members of the program committee would take a moment and stand, please. These are the folks, come on, I know you're out there. Everybody would like to, please, a hand for our program committee. I mean, you look at the diversity here, you know, you've got private universities, public universities, we've got regional networks, national research projects. It's just a great, great collaboration. And over the next couple of days, in the tracks you're going to see, and in some really innovative activities that we're going to be doing, I think you'll have an opportunity to see the great work these folks have put together and the quality of the presentations. So let me get us moving into our program, and I'd like to invite my colleague, Anna Hunsinger, who is the Vice President for Community Engagement, to the stage. Anna will take you through this next portion of the program. Anna.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you here, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our first technology exchange. There's so many bright minds in this room in IT and higher education. Thank you for being here. It's wonderful. I'm going to talk about how it's no secret, and get ready, how we have severe underrepresentation of women and minorities in our communities, and especially as many of you have noted, and in many conversations with me, at these type of events and into our programs. This is also creating issues for us in our respective communities about how we grow the talent pipeline. So we can't shove that fact under the rug anymore. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Let me focus a little bit about women in IT. In fact, many of you have been hearing some of these things as of lately in the news, so I'm not saying anything new. And take a look. Take a look at some of these facts. These are some of many, many facts. So for me, and I think for most of you in this room, these are perplexing figures. I know I represent a particular demographic. I know I'm a woman, of course. I know I'm Anna, and I care deeply about this. But this is not about my being Anna or the demographic or the fact that I'm a female. I know that this is an issue that covers not just females, males, all of us, all of this community together in this room. So I firmly believe that all of us have a part to play in what we can do together to bring more women into our communities. So how are we doing specifically in the research and education networking communities? We have a lot to do, but let me share with you some great things that I think I'm delighted to share with you today. I'm so proud to share with you that through a concerted effort with our partner ESNet and with many of you in the Internet 2 community, today I can say that we kick off this first technology exchange with the largest participation of women from any other event that we have had. So we have double the attendance of women at this event compared to other previous joint techs. And also, I'm delighted to also let you know that 32% of the speakers that you will hear that are in the program are women as well. And there are many programs integrated throughout the conference where you will see a lot of participation from women as well. So as I mentioned, this is a very on-purpose effort that we've been working on for some time, working with our partner ESNet. But also, I just want to say before I talk a little bit more about what we're doing in Internet 2, that the only reason I'm here is because of the work that I've been able to do with all of you. I would not be in my role at Internet 2 if it weren't for that. We are a very tight community. We know each other well. And I also know that many of you have sisters, daughters, colleagues. So this is an issue that affects men alike as well. So thank you for paying attention to it. So if we're going to do something about it, and I would like to make this meeting the baseline for anything else that we do from here on, we need to do it together. Let me tell you a little bit about a specific effort within Internet 2. The Internet 2 Gender Diversity Initiative is an effort that started roughly about a year ago. It's a community-driven effort. It's led by community members from Internet 2 as an effort to increase the diversity networking and in the IT profession at all stages of professional development. It's also an effort to increase the awareness about what are the effective approaches that can both Internet 2 the organization, Internet 2 the community can adopt more widely. This is, again, an effort driven by the community, but also that's guiding and providing recommendations to Internet 2 the employer, Internet 2 the organization, so that we can continue to improve our own practices and work to model effective solutions. These are approaches that we hope will also inform what we do to increase diversity ethnically and race diversity as well. This effort is led by a steering committee, co-chaired by Lori Burns-McRobbie from Indiana University and Marla Mayo from the Front Range Gigapop at NCAR, and with gracious commitment from all the individuals that you see listed here. For this conference, let me also do a small commercial for some of the things that are going to happen as well. In a little while, my partner ESNet, Inder Monga, will talk a little bit about what ESNet is doing. But also, on Tuesday, we will be having a conversation with all of you, and we will be having a diversity panel that will include the Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion, Dr. Karen Days from IUPUI. We also, tomorrow, will be making an important award in recognition of technologies and a great female leader, Carrie Regenstein. And On Wednesday, we will also have the participation from a representative from the National Center of Women in Technology, who will also be here. So I think we're getting pretty serious about this, and you may be wondering, what is this red chair doing here? Well, I'm kind of tired, actually, too. It's been a long week, a long year. But this chair, and it feels actually, it's pretty nice. I thought it was going to be bigger, but it's okay. This chair is here because sometimes you have to sit in order to take a stand. This red chair is here as part of the Sit With Me program, which is a program that was initiated by the National Center for Women in Technology. This program, the Sit With Me program, invites you to validate and recognize the important role that women play in creating future technology by taking a small but symbolic action. Sit in a red chair and share your story. And I can tell you later about my story, but we won't go there today. When you sit, you can also recognize the value of women's technical contributions, be inspired, and inspire women in computing and IT. Sit to embrace our perspectives and increase our participation at these type of events. Pull up a chair, sit in the chair. Males, females, technical people, non-technical people, all of you, please sit in this chair. Pull up a chair and share your story. Imagine and share your stories about designing technology that is as broad as the people that support it and that create it. This chair will be at the Internet 2 booth right outside on the second floor. And we invite you to just go take a sit and share your story and support also gender diversity in technology. Well, and one more thing before I leave you. Under the auspices of the Gender Diversity Initiative, it is my sincere honor today to also recognize a wonderful woman that has been funded to participate at our event as part of this effort. So with gratitude to the selection committee that participated in also recognizing this wonderful individual, let me introduce you to Jill Casey from the University of Alabama in Huntsville and our awardee for today. So Jill, please come on up. So this award is created, here you go, to support the attendance of emerging information technology women and early career professionals, not just into Internet 2 and our events, but also in the community so that we can provide you a place to contribute more in the IT field and in the work that you're doing with this community. So please give Jill, and I want you to sit on the chair too, if you don't mind. So. So, with that said, let me invite to the stage Inder Monga, the CTO from ESNet, who's also going to be sharing some announcements, and hopefully he'll sit on the chair too.
Thank you.
Actually, let's go this way.
Hello, everyone. I'm actually speaking for Greg. Greg was supposed to be here giving this, but unfortunately he couldn't make it today because he felt sick. He should be here today evening, and hopefully you guys will have a chance to interact with him then. I'll start with a quote. Diversity is not about how we differ. Diversity is about embracing one other's uniqueness. And with that, I want to say that ESNet is very concerned about the lack of diversity in our technical communities. I will relate this to a field that I'm particularly interested in, innovation. And I did some research, and what it said, a recent Forbes study has identified workforce diversity as a key driver of innovation and as a critical component of being successful on a global scale. And we all care about being successful on a global scale. There is another study by Lu Hong and Scott Page that have shown that groups of diverse problem solvers can outperform groups of high ability people. And that's another name for experts. So even if the attendance statistics are a bit better this year, and thanks for Anna for sharing that, I still think we have a long way to go. And we'll be working with Internet 2 to develop strategies for inclusion and would like to hear your ideas as well. And I think I would particularly invite all of you to one of the panel that Anna talked about, which is tomorrow, inclusion in research and education communities. What are we doing about it? And that's at 1:30 to 3 p.m. tomorrow. Now, ESNet is happy to sponsor the attendance of two people, two very talented early career professionals from the national laboratories and the DOE community. Please do engage with them while you're here this week and include them in your networks. In addition to bringing them up on the stage today, each of them will be receiving from ESNet a biography of inspiring American computer scientist Grace Hopper. So first, I would like to introduce you to Arzu Gosni, who has a PhD in computer science from Washington State University and works at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory, PNNL, as a senior IT services manager in automation and monitoring. Please come to the stage. Congratulations. So I hope you all talk to her when you see her in the hallway and chat with her. Thank you. The second person is Julie Peterson, who has degrees in civil engineering and a background in numerical modeling, and works at the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab as a computer systems engineer specializing in identity and collaboration technologies. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here, but she's going to be joining us in a couple of hours, and I think she'll be recognized Wednesday morning. So on behalf of ESNet, I hope you enjoy this exciting conference and network with each other heavily. I will leave you with a quote from Steve Jobs. The source of wealth and capital in this new era is not material things. It is the human mind, the human spirit, the human imagination, and our faith in the future. Enjoy your conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and congratulations again to the awardees this year for their attendance and participation. We all promise to benefit quite a bit from our engagement with them. Well, on to our keynote speaker. I think many of you know Harper Reed. Harper asked to do his own introduction today, which I think is great because it's a rather diverse set of experiences. I do know Harper's one of the few people I know from Chicago. He's an international urbanite, lives in downtown Chicago, and I said, South Side or North Side, you know, Cubs or Sox? And he said, I'm a technologist, I don't care. I think that's a pretty good introduction. So Harper, please join us.
Thank you. Hello. Hello everyone. I'm Harper. I always say that I like to do public speaking because it helps grow my Twitter followers. That's the only reason I'm up here, so I can put this slide up and say, follow me. It doesn't work as well as you might think, though. It's a lot of work to get a couple followers. Anyway, today I want to talk about a couple things. I want to talk about building a great team, practicing failure, facilitating community. But the first thing I want to talk about is my favorite topic in all of the world, myself. Okay, so you guys obviously know who these people are. This is my first computer, an Apple IIc. I have no idea how old I was when I got it. I think about 6. I started programming BASIC. It was awesome. It took my brother and I quite a while to realize we could save the programs. So it was like, we'd just be like, Mom, do not turn this computer off. And so we'd just play, and then she'd turn it off, and then we'd have to write it all again, which really helped us hone our skills and learn iterative development. Anyone read this book? Very good book. I read this book probably when I was about 13. Obviously, it talks about all these important things: sharing, openness, collaboration, engaging on the hands-on imperative, all this fun stuff to be a hacker. And this is when I was 13. I was like, wait a minute, I'm a hacker. This is an exciting thing for me to realize. My parents were like, wait, what? Can you describe what you just said? And I was like, no, Mom. I'm a coder. Okay, then all of a sudden it's fine, right? But I lived this hacker lifestyle. I was very interested in computing. And I was actually reminiscing earlier today that one of my first servers that was on the internet was at Ornet on accident. I didn't know what Ornet represented. Only recently have I learned here what a big network this is. But more importantly, I just did it because it was very inexpensive bandwidth. And I had a lot of big bandwidth usage, which is really important. I think I was paying $300 for rent and $2,000 for hosting. I think that's how it always works, right? Obviously before cloud. So anyway, has anyone heard of this company? So this company is Threadless. Threadless was a pretty exciting company, still is. I joined in about 2005. Threadless is interesting because apparently we invented crowdsourcing. You guys have heard of crowdsourcing, yeah? Yes. Okay, good. Crowdsourcing is apparently an up-and-coming new technology. But we invented this in 2001. Apparently, we don't actually know this. We went to MIT. We walked out on stage, and they're like, this is Threadless. They invented crowdsourcing. And we were just kind of like, crowd what? We had no idea what they were talking about. Because all we did is we took something like this and turned it into that. Very simple. And really, this is a couple steps, 4 steps really. Very simple steps. We took designs from people like you. Everyone here would upload a design. You'd submit them. Then you would vote on those designs. And then cash money would fall from the ceiling. Very easy, right? Well, it was actually a really fun business to be a part of. We had about 100,000 designs that were uploaded over my time there. Millions and millions of votes. Millions of t-shirts were sold. We grew from X to XX. I keep getting in trouble for talking about revenue, so this will have to do. But the best part was, and this is where crowdsourcing comes in, we did none of the hard work. We only facilitated the money. That was the easy part, right? All you guys did the hard work. That was exciting. Our technology stack was very easy, very 2005. PHP plus the opcode accelerator and then MySQL. Very straightforward. This allowed us, though, to do the one thing that was really important, which was focus on the product. We wanted to make sure that we did all the technology so that the product was easy to do and easy to define. Around 2009, I realized I had accomplished all of my goals. And so I did the one thing that you should always do, which I want all of you to do today, is I quit my job. Who's with me? Okay, we have a few. Hopefully your bosses aren't near. I once did a talk similar to this, and I had a couple engineers that work for me in the back, and they're raising their hands, and I'm like, no, just kidding. But I quit my job around 2009, and I was just sitting there, and I was like, what am I going to do? So I went on a vision quest. Do you guys know what a vision quest is? Okay, so a vision quest, for those that don't know, is when you go in the desert and you do a lot of drugs and you find your spirit animal. I did not do that. I joined a venture capital firm. But it seems similar, right? And so I went on this vision quest, and out of nowhere, I met this guy, not that guy, this guy, Michael Slavey. Michael Slavey was a CTO for Barack Obama in 2008. And Michael Slavey, he's a really good guy, smart, a political operative, kind of one of those people that you would say is like he dresses like a progressive, right? I had no idea what that meant until I met Michael Slavey, but this is what he wears every day. I think if we met right now, if it was 3 in the morning and he walked in, he'd be dressed like this. And so I was joined. This is my official campaign photo. And I was CTO in 2012. I always like to joke that if you put the next CTO here, if the media is doing that narrative, that it'll be a homeless person. We'll see how that goes. But anyway, so I became the CTO, and this was a really exciting thing for me. I was describing it to some friends, and they kept asking, why? How did you do this? Why you? And I was like, come on, Mom, like I earned this. But the real thing is really this is a good question. Why would they go to pick someone like me? And you have to look at 2008 versus 2012. In 2008, the Obama campaign was a startup. It was a very small organization, very resource constrained. They didn't know if they were going to last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They didn't know if they were going to survive this poll. They had no idea what was going to happen. In 2012, we were basically the Microsoft of campaigns. We knew we were going to have $1 billion. We knew we were going to have thousands, if not millions, of people involved. All of this was a given. And so they needed someone that from the get-go could understand how to build enterprise software, how to build a big team, how to recruit all those people that you need, and for the most part, do engineering. So I described this to most people that said why. One of those people was my wife, who is Japanese, and she says this, which I have no idea what this means. I don't speak Japanese. Mochi wa mochiya, I can read that. Mochiya mochiya is one of my favorite things, this Japanese saying. Basically, it means if you want rice cakes, you go to the rice cake dealer. You don't go to the supermarket, you go to the rice cake dealer. Now, you guys are all saying, what are you talking about? This is what I'm talking about. For the campaign, we knew we had to go get engineers. We knew that we had to do engineering, hardcore tech stuff. And before, the campaigns often went and just hired a bunch of very smart 24-year-olds to do all this work, and they just put them in line, and they just did this work. Well, this is the first time that the campaign said, no, We need people that are highly technical in that role. We cannot just go to the regular group of people and grab them and put them in this pile. So we hired analysts and user experience people and engineers and all this exciting stuff. It worked out pretty well. My core team had about 40 engineers. They were from all these great companies that you're familiar with, and this is the best one, obviously. We had about 120 tech staff. That's about 10 times the staff that we had in 2008. We started from absolutely zero, which was an exciting thing for me. I kind of wondered where the code came from in 2008, like what happened to it. I think they burnt it in some victory pyre, some dance of some sort. But we had about 18 months. And the thing about having 18 months is when you look back on 18 months, it seems like about this much. But when you're looking forward, it's so much time. We had no idea how little time we had. So the one thing that we had to focus on above everything else was execution. We could not deviate from the plan. This is a cake that one of our ops guys made about 3 weeks before the election. He brings it in, and he says, like, I made a cake, everyone. And everyone looks at it, and they're like, but if we eat this and then we fuck it up, what happens then? We're all very superstitious at this point. No one is going to shake anything up. So they waited, and then they ate it after the election, which I thought was way sketchier. But this is actually the first thing that Jim Messina, who was the campaign manager, said to me. He said, oh, thanks for coming. I'm glad you're here. Don't fuck it up. And then he left, and that's it. So it's very famous words. But the thing is because we could focus only on execution, there's only one thing that we had to do to make sure that this was successful. We built this thing called Narwhal. Did anyone hear of Narwhal? So Narwhal was in the political news, and a lot of people thought it was important for politics. For me, it was kind of simple. This is Jim Messina dressed as a narwhal. This is him as Harry Potter. The campaign was pretty stressful, so we made these silly photos for our presentations. This is my favorite one, but this is his favorite one. We put them at the end of every presentation. This is my question slide. Questions? And everyone looked at me like I was insane. Anyway, Narwhal. Narwhal was this concept. It was a very simple concept. For the political press, et cetera, this was bananas. They had no idea what this was. For people like us, it's very straightforward, right? We made a giant API to access all of our data. That's it. Very simple. This API gave us the freedom to then do what was very important, which was focus on the products, not have to reinvent that data store over and over and over again. And the products we had were pretty straightforward. We had one called Call Tool that allowed people to make calls and call constituents, call people for events, call people to turn out. We had one called Dashboard, which is kind of like a business process management app that allowed people to log in, see people around them that were participating in the campaign, and then go do stuff. And it would help them do that stuff, measure it, et cetera. Our mobile apps, we had a lot of mobile apps, both Android and iOS. But the most important thing here is we invested very heavy in responsive web design. So this meant every app we had, internal or external, whether it was an internal tool or whether it was some external-facing thing that was public for everyone, was responsive. When you have 1 million people who are your users, 4 million people who are your users, you don't know what device they have. We may have rules internally about what devices we supported, but externally we did not. And we had to make sure that every app that we made worked on every potential device. This was huge. Our contribution stuff was pretty straightforward. We had about 10 guys that built a couple apps. They made about $640 million with donations. Worked out pretty well. Social media, I kind of think social is boring. And then big data. Now, big data was something that everyone likes. You guys all like big data? Yeah. So one of our innovations was big data. And I have to warn you guys, I'm going to have an intervention real quick. So I usually talk in front of very big groups of marketers, and all I hear is buzz, 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 big data. So I'm afraid here I'm going to speak a little bit to the choir, so bear with me. But I think big data is bullshit. Okay? And the reason is because the big part, right? We're not here buying storage. Why do we keep hearing big? Isn't this just about data, which you guys have had for years and years and years and years and years? For the most part, you guys have had bigger data than anyone else, and you don't participate in this marketing thing, right? Please tell me that's true. Because this is the thing. I go to all these conferences and I walk in and everyone's like, what's your big data strategy? And then you just see Oracle, and what's your big data strategy? And it's like Green Plum. And they're all great companies. I love their products. But why are we celebrating storage? Why don't we start celebrating the questions and answers, which is what you guys are doing all the time, yeah? So thank you. So I'm speaking to the choir. This is great. But I do want one thing. I want to hear about a big answers conference. Why isn't there a conference that's like, here, we're going to go and talk about all of our big answers that took a long time to build, instead of this big data conference that we always see? So anyway, my intervention is done. So one of our biggest innovations was data. We used a lot of data, probably not as much data as you guys used, but for a campaign, this blew minds. The media especially, their mind was crazy blown. They had no idea what to do. Here's a Google query that I did, Obama campaign data. Now, actually, this one's kind of boring. Let's make it more exciting. Obama campaign micro-targeting. Enhance. I have no idea what that means. Like it doesn't mean, this is also my favorite picture from the internet. This is a horse carrying a cat on a boat. But the takeaway here is very obviously that micro-targeting is very exciting, right? Like, you know, all this data stuff is fun, but micro-targeting, that's where it's at. So let's kind of show you guys, oh, that's the wrong direction. Let's show you guys what we did. Anyone here know Dan Sinker, journalism guy? Dan Sinker is a really great guy, but he said this in 2008. So did anyone here get emails? Yes, okay, a few emails. So we send a lot of emails. We're always going to send a lot of emails. All campaigns are going to send a lot of emails because you keep giving money. If you stop giving money, we'll stop sending emails, as a group, though. So work together on that one. Okay, so this is an actual email that we received. We did a lot of modeling based on how much money would some person give. This is an email that I got in my inbox. This is my email, and it says $56 right there. So what I did when I saw this email was I said, ooh, $56, clicked it immediately, and they took the money from my bank account. That's what most people did. Because in our modeling, we said, this is the amount of money that Harper, based on the previous contributions I have given, will give. Some people had $2,000, some people had $50, some people had $3 up there. In my head, I'm just like, why is this out of order? But here's another thing we did. We went ahead and added a Facebook Connect in front of the login so that anyone who logged in would log in with Facebook. Another email I received. This one was closer to Election Day. The exciting thing about this email is it takes all this social data that we have and surfaces it directly into the email. So one of the things when I say social is boring, I find social really boring because most of the time when people talk about social, they're talking about social within the sphere of Facebook itself or inside Twitter. But we don't often talk about how do we take social and push it somewhere else. This is where it gets really exciting. So this is an email where I connected with Facebook. We went and crawled all of my friends. We went and crawled, and we all have those friends that we don't really know who they are, right? On Facebook. I call them high school friends. Went through all those friends, all those people who you're just kind of like, eh, and then all the people who like every status, right? We all have those friends too. We put all those in a pile, and then we found the ones that are both in photos with you and then live in an important state like North Carolina. And then we did some magic on the modeling there, and then bam, we have one person that we're going to send an email to you about for you to reach out to. So what we found is we found the person that you influence. And so based on our modeling, this is my friend John, lives in North Carolina. Now the thing about John is the computers just picked him out of my 1,500 Facebook friends, and he's actually one of my best friends. And so this is an exciting thing for me to see when this technology just worked like that. So I called up John and reminded him to go vote because Democrats are lazy and we all forget to vote. And he went and voted. Worked out pretty well. We did this with SMS as well. This is an exciting thing. We went ahead and surfaced these SMS, very similar technology. Just said, hey, Harper, why don't you give $5? I was worried though. I thought SMS would turn out like this, where it just because it's. You guys might be the only audience I've ever talked to that got the Control H in my entire life, which is sad for the world, right? But everyone else is probably like, what does this mean? I never really thought about that. It was just native. So the thing is it worked really, really, really well. It worked so well that we actually deployed it on one of our biggest nights, which was New Year's. And I know it actually turned out like this. So the outcome here is, all this data stuff, as you guys know, it works pretty well. Data's our friend. And for us, it really helped us raise boatloads of dollars. It helped us do better content distribution. It helped us have more efficient voter contact. But there was something that was kind of missing. Like there was this one thing that we weren't doing. With all that data stuff that I just described, a lot of it was just push. We're just pushing at you, here, 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 look at this, look at this. Traditional advertising. And I was talking to a friend, I don't know how many of you guys know this guy, Tim O'Reilly. Anyone here know Tim? Good friend, great guy, O'Reilly Publishing, does a lot of cool stuff with technology. And Tim was saying, Harper, I'm really tired of micro-targeting. It's obviously very exciting, as you saw with that crazy horse, but this is really, I'm just tired of it. What I want to see is I want to see more micro-listening. How do you use that same technology that you're using to do targeting? How do you use that to have a conversation? How do you use that? And then when I talk to marketers, their eyes light up, and they're like, oh, you figured out how to do one-to-one. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're talking about. We figured out how to do a conversation, which is exciting for us. And so how do we do this? It was actually pretty easy. When it turns out that what we would do is someone would go knock on a door, and they would write all this information down. We'd type it in with volunteers. I have a funny story real quick, which you guys will probably like. So we had all these interns, all these volunteers typing things in, and there was this report that went out every morning at like 5 a.m., and one day it didn't go. And so I talked to one of the systems people. I'm like, looks like that cron job failed. And they're like, oh no, the intern didn't get up. There were so many reports that were literally an intern waking up at 3 a.m., running the query, like having the Excel, and this is the thing that killed me every time. They would screenshot the Excel and paste it into an email, and you're just like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. And then, but you're like, well, okay, just get another intern. So anyway, we had all these interns, and they'd type in all this data, and it'd go into this big system, back in some cases into Narwhal, in some cases into other databases, and then we could surface it again. So every time we had an interaction with that person, we could have a conversation that referenced the previous time. This was really exciting and really helped people understand that we were people as well. We weren't just this crazy campaign. We did this a little bit on Twitter. We sent DMs to random people. It was really exciting. My favorite one here is feeling special because I got a DM from Joe Biden. He's kind of like America's drunken uncle. Obviously not true, not accurate, just, you know, I thought it was fun. This worked very well as well because what we did is we found influencers that were in small little communities. Rather than this idea of influencer, which I think is largely fake, we said this person influences maybe 20 people. How do we get them in this important state to just pop up and say, yeah, you know, I got a DM from the president. Apparently that's fun to do, get a DM from the president, and everyone really liked it. Worked out pretty well. We did a lot of asking. All of our software, you can barely see it here. Right here it says ups. This area here, people could type in and they could say like, how was the day today? And so what this was, in all of our software we had questions in there that just said, how are you doing? This then trickled up to the top, if things can trickle up. It trickled up to the top. Isn't that Reaganomics? Anyway, sorry. It trickled up to the top, and then it allowed us to kind of see and understand what people at the bottom were thinking, feeling about what's going on. So if there was a problem in some state, we could see it at headquarters and really get a good idea of what we could do so we could reach back out and once again have this loop. This was huge. Listening largely worked, and it really mapped well to data. On the technology side in the campaign, we were pretty straightforward, you know, just kind of a normal Python, Ruby, PHP, also Java, C, and Perl, Node.js shop. We used MySQL. We also used all these other things. OMG is not a data store yet, I think. So if you guys get bored and want to name something, this slide would become relevant. We used StatsD and Graphite. You guys know StatsD or Graphite? This is a really awesome tool for just tracking various things, especially if you're talking about high-performance web stuff. It listens on UDP, and you just throw a bunch of stuff at it, and it collects it and shows you graphs. And then so people like me are like, ooh, look, graphs. Because, you know, as a CTO, all I do is build dashboards. We use Puppet and Vagrant for dev, and then we used Ubuntu because we're adults. I've been waiting all my life to be able to say that to you guys. So we called this framework, the OFA framework, we called it the use all the things. Because we really didn't care what it was as long as it worked and as long as it solved the problem. We had a unique property, which was, for the most part, the campaign was going to end in 18 months, right? And so we could kind of use whatever we wanted. Turns out, though, 18 months is kind of a long time in software, and so you still have to support it, which was maybe a little bit of lack of foresight for myself. Anyway, on the infrastructure side, as you can imagine, we used all cloud. This is a huge part of our infrastructure, very straightforward. We had about 200 products that we deployed on a weekly basis. Here's our architecture diagram. Looks probably familiar, right? Thousands and thousands and thousands of servers, and here's actually our architecture diagram. Here I want to point something out. Just a second here. Sorry, it'll be here in a sec. Oh, here it comes. So, staging and testing, these are exact copies of what you just saw that scrolled past. It was pretty exciting, right? The exciting thing about this is this was all built with software, right? At this point, ops in this world is all software. So we had 4 software engineers that were our DevOps people. And although they did have to have sysadmin skills, for the most part, this was about writing descriptors, about writing and saying, this is these many boxes. It was very exciting. Here is, you guys also probably be the first audience that will understand this too. Basically, this is our head of DevOps. Very simple outlay here. 4 people built this. That was the number of sysadmins we had. For all of those products. Pretty exciting stuff. There is no way we could have done any of this without the cloud. There's just no way. We had no idea what we were going to do, let alone how much we were going to spend, let alone how much data we were going to use or bandwidth. We just had to have the cloud. It was pretty exciting. I love the cloud. You guys use the cloud? Yeah, it's kind of fun, huh? So all this technology, what was important about it? Well, we just tried to push the technology behind us so we could once again focus on the product. And in a situation where failure is absolutely not an option, we did a couple things. And I'll talk a little bit more about failure later. But the one thing we invested in heavily was user experience. Any user experience people here? You guys have users here? I would actually like, next time someone says any user experience people here, I think we should all raise our hands. Because we all are dealing with users on a daily basis. And usually, there's an adversarial relationship, right? Everyone's like, yeah, users. But the thing is like these users are the ones that are using, and they're the ones that are paying our bills in many cases. Like, without them, what are we going to do? We're just going to have an empty box sitting there quiet, which might be nice, I admit. But the thing is, user experience was huge. So we actually made a really big investment in hiring user experience. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then testing. We tested a whole boatload of things. Everything we tested, and I'll talk about that as well. In fact, we practiced failure for 1 whole month, which I'm excited to share about. The campaign, though, practiced failure constantly. They're an organization that really embraces this to understand how are they going to be successful. It was a great experience to kind of learn that there. And election day was pretty straightforward. No more changes. You know how you say, OK, we're going to go live, so there's no more changes here? It actually happened. This is exciting because you don't want to destroy America. This is a post-it that I found on election day. I learned the definition on that day of frenetic. It's an exciting word to learn. But for the most part, it's pretty chill. We kind of just relaxed and watched things not burn, thankfully. And as you guys know, we won. You're welcome. But let's go in. That was just the intro. So a couple things here. Politics is super hard. Anyone know who this is? John Maeda. John Maeda was the president of RISD. He came running into my office one day. He was just visiting the campaign. And he is like, Harper, I bet you deal with a lot of politics. And I was like, well, I mean, it's a political campaign. And he's like, no, politics with a little p. How many of you guys deal with politics with a little p? If you're not raising your hands, I know you're lying. You're in academia. So the thing what he said is he actually said this piece of advice, which I found incredibly helpful. It was very simple. It was, if you're trying to deal with political situations, political relationships, if you start by managing your inbox, actually by your outbox, you manage your email by your outbox, you look at who have you interacted with, not who has interacted with you, things actually work pretty good. And so this is about midpoint in the campaign, and I was like, this is whatever crazy guy who just ran into my office. And a couple weeks go by, and I'm noticing there's a couple relationships that I'm like, I might as well try it out. So I started measuring how many times have I emailed them versus how many times have they emailed me? Because before I was kind of waiting for that email, right? You're kind of waiting, you're like, man, whatever about that guy, he hasn't emailed me in a bit, or whatever. And so I sent this email out that was just like, hey, this is the update on this thing, hope this helps. And the person replied and said, thank you for emailing me. And I was like, I have made a huge mistake in the past. Because really, they were just feeling underserved by me. They just wanted, and obviously as technology folks, many of us are in service kind of positions. And so we sometimes need to step out where we're uncomfortable. And this is a good way to do that. It helped quite a bit. Okay, so let's go to the 3 important lessons here. First one is building a great team. Second one is practicing failure. And the third one is facilitating community. Let's talk about team for a minute. Everything that we've done, probably in this group, everything that I've done for sure, I can say with authority, is because of the great team. And teams, anyone here build teams? Once again, you should probably all have your hands up. Teams are not easy to build, right? So here's some of my rules on how do I build a good team. The first rule is pruning. Sadly, we can't be afraid to fire people, right? It totally sucks. It is never fun. But the way I kind of think about this is you're not killing them. Bear with me here. Because this is the thing. We had one organization that we worked at, and there was a guy that worked with us, and he just didn't work out. He just wasn't a team player, et cetera. We knew what he was capable of, and he wasn't capable of what we needed him to do, and so therefore he turned into this poisonous kind of participant. We then hired him later, and he was perfect. And so just because it didn't work here doesn't mean it won't work there. And so we really try hard to make sure that when you're working with a team, that you're making sure the team is positive, that you get rid of those poisonous people, but you may not know when that person will be required next. And really required. This is important. Everyone seen this movie? I have never seen this movie. But apparently ABC equals always be closing, right? Well, actually I want to change this to always be creative. When we oftentimes talk about building teams, we always think about like, let's do a poll real quick. How many job descriptions say like Ruby Engineer 1? You've seen these, right? It's like, okay, Java Engineer 4. What does this mean? No one is excited about that job. And then we're always like, well, we have a resource problem. Well, it's actually we have a boring job problem, I think. There was how many people know Douala? Anyone here know Douala? Great startup in Iowa. The CEO tweeted, he was like, strange, I don't have a resource or hiring problem. Seems like we have a lack of interesting problems problem. I'm sure you guys have a lot of interesting problems. So how do we be creative about what you're doing, about describing that? For me, it was easy, right? I was like, do you want to save the world? And everyone said yes. So here's another one. You guys know this one, A's hire A's and B's hire C's, right? Okay, all the A's raise your hand. Okay, come on, guys. We gotta work on that one. Interesting thing about this is a lot of these are Rumsfeld's rules. So I'm talking about this, and someone's like, "Oh, you Rumsfeld's rules," and I'm just like, "Excuse me." A little awkward, right? Well, the thing about A's hire A's is pretty straightforward, right? It's just hire people who are smarter than you. This is a very fun thing to do because then you don't have to do as much work, right? This is great. This is my favorite thing to do. Trust. Trust is a big one. Teams don't work without trust. I don't have anything silly or stupid to say about that. But the next thing is measuring everything. We've always found that if you measure everything, it really gives you this great opportunity to talk about success. And if you don't have that measurement, you can't know what success is. You just have a gut, and guts don't work here. And measuring success and understanding success, then you can celebrate. You can celebrate when you win, and this is very exciting. Diversity is probably one of the most important things we heard earlier about how important that is in the great work that we're doing here at Internet 2. But I want to talk a little bit about diversity. So one of the things that I always one of the things that I always thought was really messed up is how it's easier for me as a red-bearded dude to hire another red-bearded dude than it is to hire a person of color when redheads are genetically going extinct, right? I've read these reports. These are scary reports for me and my kind. But when I can hire a sysadmin that looks more like me than a person of color, woman or man, we're in a bad spot. So we need to fix this. So I want to challenge all you guys, and really you guys is who I'm challenging here, is to hire people that look differently from you. And so why? We heard a little bit about why earlier, and I think the why is because a diverse team makes better products, very simply. And that's it. When you're building products that are on the internet, which many of you may be doing, the internet does not look like me. Some of it does, the more neckbeardy part, right? But for the most part, the internet does not look like me. So we need to make it look like you guys. We need to make it look like everyone, and your teams need to reflect that, or you're not building a product for the internet. Now, this isn't easy. There's a couple things that I like to suggest, and some of it, it's kind of trite, but the first thing is you got to try. And I really mean that. You have to step up and you have to say, look, I'm going to go to bat because this person may look differently from us. Maybe they don't fit the same parameters that we kind of look for. Maybe they don't have an advanced degree. Maybe they came from a vocational school. Whatever that is, you got to step up and you got to try. But the second thing, and this is, I think, more important, and we're starting to do this more, but we need to do more and more, we got to talk about it. We got to talk about our experiences here. We have to make sure we talk about our failures, and we have to talk about the success, because we're not going to learn by each doing it our one way. We have to learn about how we're all trying to do it. And it's good to hear some of the stuff earlier, but I want you guys to all try. It's not going to get easier. We already heard this, but it's not going to get easier if we ignore it. We have to face it. But most important with teams, though, is very simply shipping. How many of you have a product that you have that no one has seen? Okay, I was going to say there's no hands, but I was like, this is a technology group. That's not true. There's that sad part of shipping technology, which is we wait until it's done. Has it ever been done? Have we ever had anything done in our lives? I mean, this is kind of a depressing part of technology, right? It's never done. So what are we waiting for? We have to push that out, because one of the things that I really hate is when you're stuck and you're building, you're hacking on something, and you're hacking for this user that you don't know is real. I call it the God user. Like, it's the perfect user. And you don't even know if the product that you're building is going to be worth anything. And so once you ship it, though, then you start getting complaints and comments and excitement, and everything works or it doesn't work, and then you know, and then you can breathe that sigh of relief, and the whole team is like, okay, I now know what we're doing. But up until then, you don't know what you're doing. So we need to ship. Is anyone here willing to ship their product today? The same guy who quit earlier. Yeah. So building a team is hard, right? I mean, this is one of the hardest things, but we have to do it. And we have to keep doing it. And I'd love to hear afterwards some of your guys' tips on how you guys build teams. Practicing failure. So I talked a little bit about this earlier, but I really want to dive a little deeper here. So failing is really hard. It totally sucks. But if you understand failure, you get this really neat opportunity to really understand success. And more importantly, you get to understand how can you be successful. So how do we do it? Well, as I said, we invested heavily in user experience. And the real reason why is because it allows us to talk to the users. This is what it did for us. It told us the difference between functional and usable. And functional, we can all build functional things. This is what I like to call the tests passed, right? You're like, does it work? Test passed. You're like, okay, so it works. But it's not usable. No one's used it. They use it. They don't know how. We've all used, like, I guess a great example of this is like the generic Salesforce, right? Has anyone ever used that? You log into it, and there's like 3,000 forms, and you're just like, what does this mean? Or Visual Basic. So A/B testing, which one do you guys like better? I'm sorry. Have you seen this movie? Okay, so this movie is one of the best movies about multivariate testing in the world. And there's a couple really, really good posts on the internet about how long Bill Murray stays in that town. And it's hundreds and hundreds of years. He has to learn piano, all that stuff, languages. It's great. But the thing here is this allowed us to understand where we were wrong. We had no idea what we were doing many of the times. And having a good testing framework allowed us to really go forward and not worry about that we didn't know, because the users, the people, the interactions would tell us if we weren't right. Fail safety. You guys understand fail safety, right? This is a pretty easy thing. I went and saw the space shuttle when it launched the very last time. And they have this kind of thing that says fail safety in one of the museums. It was really cool. And it talked about fail safety, and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. This idea that you will cause no harm. How often are we thinking of software this way, where users are the people that we're harming? How often do we have a 500 error or some error on the web where it's just an error? The user's clicking along, and all of a sudden it's an error, and they've hit a dead end. how do we use fail safety in software? How do we make software that will cause no harm? And I mean, we're talking, it's not killing them, I hope. Anyway, it's not hurting them, but how do you make it so their interactions, their ability to use this software is happy and nice? And so if there is an error, how do you redirect them to a place that works? One of the things we did on the campaign is we knew there would be software errors. We knew there would be 404s, 500s, et cetera. And what we did is instead of showing them that error, we just redirected them somewhere else and said, that's not quite working right, but how about you do this instead? Because our job was to get people to do work. And if we showed them an error, they were not going to do work. And so we just said, act like that didn't happen, mysterious. And then over here, you can do work, though. And it worked incredibly well. Now, most important here, and this is one of the biggest things, is practice. So I talked a little bit about what we did where we practiced failure. We did this thing where we called a game day, tabletop exercise, this kind of idea of how do we go in and, excuse me, but just fuck with the engineers, is what I like to call it. And so what we did is we went in and we had the engineers. We said, OK, we're going to do this game day. And this was architected by my buddy Dylan. If you're interested in this type of stuff, follow him on Twitter. And Dylan said, hey, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to build this team building exercise, very straightforward. We're going to go ahead. We're going to give you guys a menu of failures. We're going to say, at 10 a.m., DNS is going to cut out. At 11 a.m., the queues are going to stop responding. Maybe at 1, I don't even know, hard drives are going to disappear. Just something terrible will happen. So the thing is this turned into one of the best things we did, because this team building exercise where everyone's just going to fight and learn how things break and how to work as a team to respond to it, turned into this really strong understanding of our infrastructure and how things could fail. And it turns out also that Dylan, who was this amazing DM at this process, mixed everything up because failure doesn't happen by a menu, and everything was crazy. The engineers did not like it. I liked it. Mostly because of this. But the one thing it did is, I like speaking to younger crowds because they're like, what is that? And who would ruin a keyboard like that, right? That's a great keyboard. But the thing about what this did for us was it really allowed us to create this run book. This thing that said, OK, there's database pressure on Ushahidi, turn to page 35. And you turn to page 35 and you're like, oh, look at that. We've already run into this. This is how we respond to this. But now we're doing it in production. And because we use the cloud, we're able to copy our production just in part and just be like, whoop, here's a new production. Let's test on there. Worked out pretty well. It really helped us quantify those limits. And then because of this, we had no downtime. That did not mean that we didn't have any catastrophic failure. It's just we were able to take the catastrophic part out of the catastrophic failure. It was awesome. So facilitating community. I like talking about community because a lot of my work honestly revolves around communities and how do we do communities. Communities are oftentimes, when you're talking to normal brand type people, this is something they're like, how do you do communities? How do you facilitate communities? But I actually think communities are all of our users, the people that talk about our products, the people who are marketing, all the people who are not us. That's the community. And sometimes us as well. But they're the power behind everything that we have. And we oftentimes underestimate how important they are. When we've done community stuff in the past, this is how kind of we've done it. So the first thing is authenticity. This guy is named Charlie. He worked with us at Threadless. He used to be our canary, kind of, whenever we'd launch new features at Threadless. We'd put him out there and we'd say, Charlie, what do you think of this? And he'd be like, this is terrible. And then we'd know that it was going to be terrible. But it took us about 2 years of him telling us everything was terrible before we realized that he was directly linked with all of our customers. And so every time Charlie was like, I don't think this is a good idea, we just kind of trudged through. We always ran and we always retreated because it turned out it was a bad idea. And so having that authentic person in your organization really helps. The next one is purpose. For the Obama campaign, it was very easy. This is the signing of healthcare. It allowed us to really have people to say, this is why I'm here. Installing that and really pushing that in your organization is huge. Empowerment. One of the things that we did a lot was, how do we empower, and this is kind of one of those things you do and then you learn the lesson after. We said, how do we empower our users to do all the work we don't want to do? And so what we did is, you see this all over right now, right? It's been going on for years. It's like, mark as spam. Like, you're just doing jobs that someone else should be doing. You're just the user that happens to be doing it. Like, mark this as, whatever. There's all sorts of examples of this. Report this content. But the side effect here is the users feel like they're really a part of something. They're excited about it. And there's people who really just want to do this all day long. Very weird, but they really do. They really want to do this all day long. Very exciting. My favorite one is this one. And so this is a company called, I think, Kick, maybe, bought by Rackspace. At the bottom of every page, they had this thing here. I wish this page would. It was just a simple question, and then it was just a form. You just click there, and you could fill out whatever you wanted in that. And all it did was make you feel like the company is listening. It was very, very cool. But the most important thing here is safety, right? How many of you guys know this guy? Anyone know this guy? Obviously not someone we want to talk about, but this is kind of what it is. Normal person plus anonymity plus audience equals a terrible person. Has anyone heard this formula before? It's a really good formula, right? And the thing about this is, I didn't invent this. This is John Gabriel's greater internet dickwad theory. So now, I have to be careful here because I'm actually very pro-anonymity. But I do think that what this does is there's a lot of opportunities for people on the internet to just be bad actors. And we don't want that. And so how do you build that? How do you build trust so that doesn't happen? And I actually think this is pretty easy to do. You don't want your new users to run into this guy as their first experience, right? Which I'm sure this guy's a nice guy. I don't know. But what often happens is we create these neighborhoods. We create these applications. They languish out there. No one has updated it. They don't feel safe. And what we need to do is we need to make these great neighborhoods. When you're thinking about your users and you're thinking about how they interact with you, you have to make sure that you have upkeep, that it seems safe. Without this, people will not move there, and we want people to move there. So, create that environment that's worth trusting. That's the most important thing here. That's about all today. Thanks for listening. I'm really excited to be here. Remember to ship your products. So, thanks. Thank you.
Outstanding. I gotta rest for a second. Okay, well, he said it. Hire people smarter than yourself. I think we just accomplished that with his presentation. Thank you very much, Harper. Staying with that theme, I'm very, very pleased to introduce our next speaker, a good friend of mine here from Indiana University. Stacy Morrone is responsible for, she's the Associate Vice President for Learning Technologies at Indiana, and she's going to be joining us to talk really about the boundaries of the traditional classroom. We just heard about busting boundaries in the politics side. Now we're going to hear about busting boundaries in the classroom. So with that, please join me in welcoming Stacy Morrone.
Thank you, Jill.
Stacy's here as part of our new series on Tech Talks. Tech Talks are like TED Talks, so they're compressed 20-minute blocks, but there will hopefully be a time for a few questions if we can fit those in. But you'll see a number of these over the next few days. So we have this talk and then another one following. But just like with Harper, as we're moving through these, Harper would like questions directed to him directly via Twitter. He said he'll respond to every one of you. So everybody in the audience that didn't raise your hand earlier, please tweet Harper. And we'll be able to get those questions to Stacy as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So my job is to give you a little bit of a sneak preview on what I'm going to talk about in more detail with my colleague Julie Bowenkamp on Wednesday morning. So I'm just going to kind of give you a sense of what we're doing with classrooms. And so I want to start with this quote by Benjamin Franklin. And if you this is really kind of powerful if you think about that he said this many years ago. Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn. Well, this is about engagement. This is about student engagement. And here we have this quote from Benjamin Franklin that says exactly that. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about on Wednesday in more detail, but I'll give you a little bit of context now. Do you recognize classrooms that look like this at your universities? And by the way, I can only kind of sort of see you, which is why Harper was doing this. Okay. So it's fine. Looks like a classroom. You'll see that we've got, your basic technology there. We've got all that. Here's the back of the room. We can use those Post-it notes and we can write all over them. And we've got tables, and it actually looks like students could actually talk to one another, kind of. Although, we have cleaning staff at the university, and guess how they like to set up this room? Not like this. What do you think it looks like? Rows facing forward to the front of the room. So pretty traditional stuff, right? So a few years ago, we said, okay, we're going to set out to change this. And so this is what we ended up with as one of our very first designs. This is the same room, barely recognizable, but this is the same room where we said, okay, let's truly have this be a collaborative environment. And let's have students working together, D-shaped tables, and using the technology at their tables. And to transform that experience that you saw on the previous slide, same room, into one in which we've got lots of technology, the ability to share what's going on in the classroom, and to do that by redesigning this classroom. So, this was early, and this was where we started in thinking about what can we do. I will tell you that the students who'd been taking classes, this is in a School of Education building on our Indianapolis campus, IUPUI, just across the street. And students had been used to being in this room. So I can tell you what the reaction was when they walked into the room after it had been redone. And it was like, whoa. And the students were like, wow. And it took no time at all for them to easily begin to use the technology. And it was a little harder to get the faculty to begin to think about how to teach differently. So it's like, well, how do I guess lecturing is going to be harder. It is going to be. It's different. And so this is a classroom where faculty who wanted that collaborative learning environment, that's what they wanted. And so that's where we started. Then sometimes you get lucky and there's a new building that's built. And so in a residence complex, there were 2 classrooms on the Bloomington campus, and they said to us, do something cool, Stacy. Wow, that's wonderful. How many seats do I have to deal with? It doesn't matter. So we said, my colleague then, former vice provost for undergraduate education, Sonia Stevens, and I said, let's do something really different. So let's design a classroom that's more like a coffee house or a cafe than it is like a traditional classroom. Again, try to push the boundaries of what this might look like. Here's a rendering just to give you a sense of what this looks like. There's a lot of stuff going on here. We've got soft seating, we've got booths, we've got kind of sofa-like seating, bar height level tables, regular level tables. We have computers on one side of the room, kind of a lot of different kinds of things. And we created this not knowing what would happen. On Wednesday, we'll share some of the data that we published in the New Directions in Teaching and Learning recent edition on this research. Really interesting. Here's what it looks like with actual furniture in it. A beautiful room and one that's been very well received. We have a Steelcase Learn Lab in that same building, which was another opportunity. Okay, so let's talk about video conference classrooms. This is another one at IU. Does it look familiar to you? There's a confidence monitor, there's stuff, and everything's kind of facing the front. This is the sign on the wall at that time. Never move the tables. Never, never change the camera presets. And in case that wasn't clear, do not move the tables even a little bit. Okay, this is where we were. Don't move anything, you'll mess it up. So keep it right where it is and don't move anything. So we started experimenting with Polycom's Eagle Eye Director because I said to my team, I said, I want collaborative learning, and I want it to be this kind of environment, like a telepresence-like environment. I want this. And they said, well, you can't do that, because they understood those signs. I said, no, I think we can. And so We're going to share some of what we've done in this kind of context where we do now actually engage in collaborative learning in a video conference classroom that we've created using this technology. One of my most recent projects is that sometimes, and this is on our Bloomington campus, you get to transform a space. This was a swimming pool space. Now, I didn't acquire it as a swimming pool because then it became a map library, and then it was empty. But you get the size and scale of this room. It's massive. And you see the bleachers off to the right, all of that. What do you do in a space like this? The objective was to create a collaborative classroom that would seat around 100 students in that space. So this was exciting and kind of daunting. And so this is what we ended up with. I had this idea one day that we needed a video wall. And it turns out that there are 16 collaborative tables in this room. And if you can kind of get a sense of the video wall, there are 16 panels. It's a 4x4 massive video wall. And the idea behind this room is that each of the tables has its own technology, but it is wired with one-to-one correspondence to one of those panels when you're in gallery mode. Now, why would I do this? Because this space is so large that it allows for a faculty member to be walking around and having his or her students be working on something and be able to see in kind of a bird's eye view what they're working on. And then, of course, we can do full screen, side-by-sides, those kinds of things, comparing groups and the like. So we'll talk more about that project and how it's led to some of the things that we're thinking about now as we design what we're calling the classroom of the future. And Julie and I will be talking more about that on Wednesday. So the session is at 9:15 in the White River Ballroom, which I think is here. So I hope you'll join us.
Stacy. I had no idea she'd converted a pool into a classroom. Diving into education, is that the whole thing? Very good. Okay, our next tech talk, Dr. Castronova, also from Indiana University, will be joining us for a quick, brief discussion on his piece. Again, these are quick engagements. We would ask that you tweet questions, email questions, and attend the longer conversations as they come forward. Please join me in welcoming Ed Castronova from Indiana.
It's so tempting to sit here and tell you my story. I mean, being on a stage with a nice red chair, very comfy. But I'll stand anyway. It's a little more entertaining to stand and walk. I'm not sure. I guess I have 12 minutes. I think that's something like 12 to 15, so I have my watch and my clock. I'll check it. Harper gave a lot of stuff, a lot of really good stuff. And one thing really stuck out for me, which was the idea of big answers. Now, you saw what Stacy just showed you guys. Those classrooms are so good that I won't teach in any other classroom on that campus. They're in a special building. I drive across the campus. Having those tables and that flexibility, I think, is a big answer. Flexibility in physical space. Right? Anytime you build a classroom that's sloped like this, you are locking in 80 years of future of how that space is going to be used. And so it's so wonderful to see things that are flat and they have wheels on them and you can actually move the tables. That seems to me is a big answer, right? And it's interesting because it's not necessarily about technology, is it? It's about facilitating good choices. So, I mean, that's wonderful. I hope I have something that may also be a big answer for you. I've been working on a project called Big World. And I'm a social scientist. I'm an economist. I work in game design, though. And so to me, I don't know what you guys think of when you hear the word game design, but I always think about social science. Many people see game design as an applied computer science, or digital art, or something like that. To me, it's social science. It's choice architecture. And Big World, as a project, is an effort to do something really special and cool in the way of choice architecture. What I hope it would become is kind of a Petri dish. Okay, so what this is, and I'm going to show you a video here in a second, a very quick little video of what's going on. You've heard of massively multiplayer online games, right? Well, they're all owned by private companies. Nonetheless, very realistic markets and governments and societies, cultures emerge within those places. Where are our biggest problems today? Are they involved with technology, right? Is climate change really a tech problem, or is it a problem of sort of sociology and politics and people? And yet, whereas like in the physical sciences and natural sciences, we can turn to things like super colliders and test tubes and so on to do experiments. We don't have that in social science, or at least we didn't. I think we have it now. If you can create a game environment, a virtual environment, a choice environment, and get 10, 20, 100,000 people into it, do the A/B testing that Harper talked about, you're not just figuring out what works in terms of an app, you might be figuring out what works as a community. So my proposal is to unleash academics into the world of game design, to create virtual environments for academics to do cool things in, and thereby hopefully learn more about society in a practical way. So could we roll that video, and then we're just going to look at it, and there's no audio. This thing is in very, very early beta stage. I see scrambling in the back corner. I can walk you through it, you know. Imagine a screen. There's a button, you click on it, and cool shit happens. So you guys, you know, it's okay. I can just explain it. I'm supposed to be, they're going to lock me in a booth with it. You can come and see what Big World is. It's not even anything special. Just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down if that thing's going to run. That's up. Okay. So this, okay. So this is the video. So I'll just walk through it. We're signing in. I want you to take note of that scrolling. I'm going to come back to that. Scrolling through a great big end user licensing agreement. You create an account. All right, and then you have this 2D environment. In the middle, you can't quite see it. There's like a little, it's a little plane, and you drop some troops down. So you're thinking, oh, troops, it's like a video game, right? So you can expand. And the thing is, it's simultaneous actions that fire about once a minute. And there's a board game that you guys might have heard of. It's called Vinci. And this mechanic is also represented in a board game called Small World. What this is you expand your empire, and you get points for the size of your empire. You see he's like making his little empire bigger. And then you can collapse that one and start a new one, and you get points for that one as well, and you continue to get points for the old one. So really this, you know, and you can expand to try and get resources, you can go out in the ocean, all these things, and you're able to kind of play a little silly 2D game. Okay, that's all we want to do, a very light, massively multi-user game of spreading colonies. You can reskin this. This could be germs spreading on a donut. This map is a torus. It could be, you know, your biome. It could be mushrooms on the floor of a forest, right? We don't really care. We want the scientists to be able to make any kind of an engagement vehicle that they want. But by having, you see, it can, you know, we can make a massive scale with potentially hundreds of thousands of people in it. You can have multiple empires. You could have alliances. You notice that there were some things about picking up resources so that people could trade. So everything that to me is interesting as a social scientist is in this. Is that a you know, a AAA game title? No, that's not the point. The point is to have a game with a rich society that the mad scientists at the university can play around with. So, I mean, it's just, yeah, you know, I think that's probably enough of that demo, so we can cut that off. And can we get the credits slide up there? Because I want to make sure that we get credit for the people who are helping me on this. So the art on this is 3 IUPUI students, AJ Shannon, Frank Musset, and Tiffany Stewart, made that art, that wonderful art you saw. And the coding is done by Brent Kivit Kailar. So what in the world could you do with that? That doesn't look like anything special. Here's some things that make it a little more special, I hope. One is the end user licensing agreement. You know, gamers are used to scrolling down on those things and just clicking and saying, I agree, I agree, I agree. We have embedded an IRB consensus statement in there. So that means it enables any kind of experiment. If you wanted to create an experiment about how people trade, the emergence of money, what makes communities form, you know, what makes people friends as opposed to enemies, how does a symbol set, for example, affect the violence of interplayer interactions? And I'm getting at the idea of religious intolerance there. What about a game that involves people in some kind of collective effort, like building a public good or taking care of something, of a problem that is bad for everyone? That's like a climate change thing. You can do these kinds of experiments. You could, in principle, with something like this, we're not there yet, but you could build 5, 10, 15 versions of New Orleans, put people in them, and throw hurricanes at them. Okay? And from that, learn where should the trailers have been? Where should the plywood have been? What do we do if communication breaks down here? You can practice your failures in that kind of an environment. Throughout the whole history of development of science research, there's been a real focus on physical tools, everything from vacuum tubes to, as I said, a super collider. And if you're an economist, you think about things in terms of rational allocation. And the way rational allocation of funds, you look at the marginal benefits of an activity, which typically are declining over the intensity of the activity. And then you compare that to the marginal costs, which are typically rising with the intensity of the activity. And you stop when the marginal costs exceed the marginal benefit. So let's just pick on physics, for example, $9 billion for a machine that helps us find another particle, which is important but costly. On the social science side, we don't have really any tools for exploration. But the marginal benefit, the benefit of being able to do experiments as opposed to ideology, data-free theoretical speculation, and working with many experiments that are done on the campus involve 27 undergraduates and that sort of thing. It's not, what we're talking about here is hundreds of thousands of people persistently in a world for a long period of time. I think there's a real fruitful area of discovery. Now, there's one thing you might be sitting there saying, no way, no way, no way, it's a game. You can't learn anything from a game. Okay. Number one, if I showed you a rat maze, you could say the same thing. You're never going to learn anything from a rat maze because it's not like reality, right? Well, experiments aren't supposed to be like reality, right? It's supposed to be a very well-defined situation. Okay? In every rat maze, there's some cheese. Okay? And what you're doing is you're exploiting the fact that the mice like the cheese. So to me, a game, like the one that we just saw, well, the game part, the little colors and the territory and all that, that's the cheese. That's all it is. And we're trying to figure out how society, it's a bunch of people pursuing that kind of cheese, how they're able to interact, and we can learn some other things. And and then the final point is like about reality and games and so on. I'd just like to say that if you have a bunch of Marines going after an objective, the objective's real, and the teamwork of the Marines, that's real too. But all the research I've seen so far indicates that when you have a bunch of people in a video game going after a dragon, the dragon's not real. But the teamwork of the players is. We don't stop being human just because we go into a virtual environment. And I think we could potentially capitalize on that to learn a lot about us as a social being. That might be a big answer. Thank you.
Okay, so from the social scientist perspective, we're going to just touch on the non-social scientist perspective from the first Indiana team. We have a great reception tonight going on, and you will be able to see and actually experience what Steve Florence and his team are doing on the robotics front. So please, if you would join me in welcoming Steve Florence and the first Indiana team to the stage.
Good afternoon. And how many of you have ever heard of FIRST? Some hands? All right. Well, FIRST is all about inspiring kids in STEM fields. And it stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. Started by its founder, Dean Kamen, in 1992, it has made an impact of thousands of kids over the last few years to make this happen. Here in Indiana, we have our own little version of Indiana First, but we are still a part of the big family of First. Right now, up in the Griffin Hall, when you get up there, come see what we have for you tonight and see the robots that these kids have built. So STEM fields are very important for us. And one of the things that we're interested in first is helping that pipeline of students to understand that at the earliest age of kindergarten and go all the way through high school and how important a STEM field could be. And also they might even find out that, you know, maybe it's a little offshoot from the STEM thing. And I like to include the arts in on that a lot because I think art has a big place in STEM, all right? And some people call that word STEAM, but I still think it's okay, all right? So anyway, what I'd like to do is to have you come up and visit with these kids sometime. We brought just a few introductions up here. I want you to understand that one of the things, it's all made with volunteers, and what we need are people like you to help these kids. We need volunteers to help with that. And that is all being something you could do a little, a lot, or if you're like me, I'm a retired public school teacher of almost 40 years, and I've been doing this for 16 years, and it's the best thing I think I've ever brought to the school. And now I'm the state director for this region, and we have got a lot of things going. So I'm going to introduce a couple other important people, but then I wanted to listen to a couple kids. This young lady right here is Renee Becker. She is our executive director for Indiana First, right? And so Dylan. So this is Dylan Griffin. He was team 1747, and he wants to tell you what it's meant to him. And then I'll finish up with a few things.
Hi, I'm Dylan Griffin. I'm a junior at Harrison High School in West Lafayette. I represent almost 50 kids that are on our team. First, it's taught me to have teamwork with people of from everywhere. I mean, you can go to these competitions and find anybody and just become friends and do all sorts of fun things. It has given me, it makes me recognize technology that we use every day. I mean, we use all sorts of sensors on our robot, and it just makes me appreciate other technology like your phones and stuff, the cameras, the heartbeat sensors. All this technology we somehow incorporate into our robots, like to check RPMs and battery status, and it teaches me lots of things that I can use later in life. So, thank you.
This is Monica Bravo, who is a different team from West Lafayette, and I'll let her speak about what it's meant for her.
Hello, my name is Monica Bravo. I am the president of First Team 461, Westside Boiler Invasion. There are about 45 people on our team this year. First has meant a lot to me for many different reasons. I started this team being a very shy freshman, and I only joined the team because my brothers were on the team. But through the different outreach events that we've done, through the different competitions that I've been to, through all the different presentations that I've been part of, I have become more confident in myself and in what I believe in, and I've learned that I should start to speak up for myself and what I think is right in the criteria of different STEM education. I started off this being a freshman and thinking that I was going to go to Purdue, because we're right next to it, and thinking that I was going to be an engineer and thinking that that was the best way that I could help my community. But through the different work that we've done with different school kids, I've learned that the best way that I can help my community is by becoming a school teacher, and that's kind of goes along with what Flo was saying, was that STEM doesn't just have to be science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. You can also do it through different ways, and I think the best way that I can help my communities in the future is by becoming a school teacher and teaching kids from a very young age that STEM is important, and to really appreciate your education and to really enjoy learning. So that's kind of how FIRST has helped me find what I want to do in my life and find my passion.
Thank you. So she made a key word to me, which I think, that kids lack today, is passion. Because passion will drive your interest, and your interest will drive your success. So passion is really important. If I can help a student find their passion, their place in life, what better thing could we ask for? Again, what we're looking for is to make all the things that sports do, but with robots. So I call it, well, a lot of people will call it, it's sports for the mind. All right? One of the things that I'm really interested in is how do I help develop a better workforce? This is probably the best workforce development program that I know of. And get me wrong, I've been in a lot of different things before, but I really do think because these students build a business plan, they have to raise money to do what they want to do, they have to figure out how to do so much with so little resources. It's just an amazing effect of what it has on them. And to me, once you get a hook into it, it's almost FIRST for life. And again, I thank all of you, and please come by and talk to these kids one-on-one. They'd be glad to give you an interest about what they're interested in, show you what they've done. And to me, it's an amazing thing to take and build one of these big robots in 6 weeks. I don't know if industry can do that, but we do. Thank you very much.
Okay. What an outstanding start to Tech Exchange. I really want to thank everybody that's been involved today, but we're not done. There's a couple of other things. I want to wrap up today by reminding you we have an opening reception this evening, and prior to that, we have what we're calling the Winner's Circle. It's a Shark Tank-like event. I wanted to call it Guppy Tank, because we're not really out to beat these folks up, but we've got 3 teams, local Indiana startups, that are competing for prizes by giving us their pitch. So to help encourage the kind of open exchange of dialogue, the bar opens at 5 outside. Get your drinks, come in here casually, and we're going to be back in this room at 5:30 for the Winner's Circle. So you'll be able to grab something to drink, Winner's Circle here, and then we'll be back upstairs to the reception that starts after the conclusion of the Winner's Circle. So with that, thank you. Find your time to find the chair and to tell us your story about how diversity is important to you and what it's going to make a difference in your environment, in your company, and in your communities. And have a great week. Thanks, everybody.